Imagine waking up alone on a battlefield where every step could be your last. The air burns, the ground cracks beneath your feet, and shadows move where they should not exist. Corpses rise. Monsters lurk. And a mysterious figure watches your every move. You are marked as the chosen, but survival is not guaranteed. One wrong decision could end everything. Can a lone player navigate a world of endless combat, blazing fire, and strategic warfare, and emerge victorious? Every second counts, every moment is a trial, and the ultimate test is about to begin. The first sound was not of nature. It was metallic. Cold. A siren echoing through the emptiness of a vast, crumbling battlefield. The sky above was painted in a dull, ash-gray haze. The air carried the scent of burning steel and old smoke. Each breath felt heavy, as though the lungs were filled with dust. He stood alone. A single figure, weary yet alert. Clothing torn, skin scratched, eyes sharp with suspicion. The silence was broken only by the distant creak of collapsing structures. Rusty towers leaned like dying giants. Concrete slabs scattered across the cracked earth. Then came the sound. A faint rhythm. Footsteps. He froze. The world around him stilled. Every muscle in his body locked in place. The sound drew closer. Crunching over broken glass. Dragging against the dirt. His eyes searched the ruins. Shadows flickered between the shattered walls. But nothing emerged. His pulse quickened. A steady drum pounding inside his chest. A reminder that he was still alive. And then, he saw them. Bodies. Dozens of them. Strewn across the ground like discarded dolls. Weapons clutched tight in lifeless hands. Eyes wide open, staring into nothing. Their mouths frozen in silent screams. A chill crawled across his spine. The stench of dried blood clung to the earth. It was suffocating. One corpse near him held a blade, old and rusted, but intact. He reached for it. And the moment his fingers touched the handle, a voice rang in his head. Deep. Unfamiliar. Only one will survive. Only one will claim this world. The ground shuddered. The air cracked like thunder. The sky above turned darker, as if the sun itself had been swallowed. Suddenly, the corpses twitched. Eyes that had been lifeless snapped toward him. Every face turned in unison. And then, the earth beneath his feet began to split. As if the world itself rejected his presence. He staggered back. The voice echoed louder. Survive or perish. And in that moment, he realized. This was not a battlefield. This was a trial. The crack in the earth widened. Dust burst upward in violent waves. The ground beneath him trembled like the roar of an angry beast. He stumbled back, clutching the rusted blade. Its weight felt unnatural. Cold. As if it pulsed faintly with a rhythm of its own. The corpses did not lie still anymore. Fingers twitched. Heads jerked unnaturally. Limbs bent at broken angles as they pulled themselves upright. Their eyes glowed faint, hollow, and empty. No soul. No humanity. Only the hunger to hunt. He felt his throat tighten. The air grew sharper, biting his lungs with every breath. A ringing filled his ears, drowning out the world. One corpse lurched forward. Its jaw cracked open with a sickening snap. A rasping breath escaped, like air escaping from a shattered pipe. He gripped the blade tighter. His hands shook. Sweat slid down his temple. The sound of his own heartbeat drowned out every other sound. Then came another. And another. Soon, a circle formed around him. Dozens of bodies, closing in from every side. The silence shattered. Their screeches erupted all at once. a piercing sound that clawed at his skull. The earth shook with the pounding of their steps. He swung the blade. The edge cut through rotten flesh. Black and dust sprayed into the air, filling his mouth and nose. He coughed violently. Eyes stung. But he swung again. And again. Each strike sent echoes through the ruins. The air thick with decay. The ground slick with ash and fragments of bone. But they kept coming. For every one that fell, 2 more rose. The circle grew tighter. His chest heaved. Arms heavy. Vision blurring from the stench and the haze. And then, a flash of light split the battlefield. Every corpse froze. Silent. Motionless. The light formed into a figure in the distance. Tall. Armored. Unmoving. A voice thundered across the broken land. You are not the first. You will not be the last. Survive, if you dare. The corpses collapsed instantly, as if puppets with their strings cut. Silence returned, heavier than before. He dropped to his knees. Breath ragged. Hands trembling around the rusted blade. The figure of light still stood, watching him from afar. And in that instant, he knew. The real enemy had just revealed itself. The figure did not move. It stood tall in the distance, glowing with a brilliance that burned against the darkness of the ruined battlefield. Its armor shimmered, silver with streaks of molten gold, but its face was hidden behind a mask. The air shifted. Cold wind swept through the wasteland, carrying whispers that did not belong to the living. Each whisper echoed in his skull, sharp and disorienting. He tried to rise, but his knees were heavy. The weight of exhaustion pressed down on him, as if the very ground wanted to keep him trapped. Still, his eyes locked onto the figure. It lifted one hand slowly. And the corpses scattered across the ground began to move again. Not rising this time, but burning. Blue flames erupted from their chests, one after another. The fire climbed their hollow frames, turning them into walking torches of ash and bone. Their bodies crumbled, but their screams remained. The battlefield was filled with a chorus of agony. 1,000 voices crying out in torment. It clawed at his ears, rattling the edges of his sanity. The figure in the distance spoke again. Its voice was neither male nor female. It was layered, distorted, like multiple voices speaking as one. This is only the beginning. The weak are burned. The strong endure. Which will you be? The ground beneath him cracked once more. This time, not in one place, but in many. Great fissures spread outward like veins of fire. He stumbled back, nearly falling into one of the glowing rifts. The heat rose in waves, burning his skin even from a distance. The smell of molten rock mixed with the stench of death. He turned to run. But the voice followed, echoing inside his skull. You cannot flee. Every path leads to the same end. Survival or ruin. Suddenly, the light figure extended its hand fully. The fissures in the ground erupted. Pillars of fire surged upward, painting the sky in crimson and gold. His eyes burned from the heat. His throat was raw from the smoke. The rusted blade in his hand began to glow, as if awakening to the flames. For a moment, everything fell silent again. The fires froze in midair. The ash hung motionless, suspended like frozen rain. And then, the figure vanished. The battlefield was still. The only sound was his ragged breathing. But on the blade in his hand, a single word had appeared, glowing faintly. Chosen. The word chosen burned in his mind like a brand. He did not understand it, but he knew it marked him. Marked for survival, or for destruction. The battlefield around him had changed. Smoke rose in thick clouds from the fissures. The heat from the molten cracks made the air shimmer and distort. Every breath felt like swallowing fire. He tightened his grip on the glowing blade. Its weight was heavier now, as if it carried the memories of every fallen combatant. From the corner of his eye, shadows moved. Figures cloaked in smoke, their features hidden but their intent unmistakable. He ducked behind a crumbling wall. The surface was hot to the touch, still radiating heat from the fissure below. He could hear the soft hiss of molten rock and the faint groans of the fallen. A shadow leapt over the ruins. It landed with a thud, sending dust into the air. The smell of scorched flesh mixed with sulfur made his stomach churn. He forced himself to focus. Every nerve in his body screamed at him to run, to fight, to survive. But the world around him was a maze of fire and ruin. There was no safe path. Then he saw movement above. A structure that had once been a tower now stood broken, leaning like a giant. A figure perched atop it, observing him. He froze. The figure was human-like but impossibly tall. Its eyes glowed with an eerie blue fire. It held a weapon that shimmered like liquid metal. Before he could react, the figure leapt from the tower. The ground shook as it landed near the fissures, sending sparks flying. The heat intensified. Flames licked the walls around him. He swung the glowing blade instinctively. The figure did not flinch. It advanced. Slowly, deliberately. The shadows from the fissures began to stir. They moved toward him, writhing, reaching, clawing. Each touch scorched his skin. He realized he was surrounded. No walls to protect him. No escape from the fire and the shadows. Only the glowing blade in his hand, and his own will to survive. The figure raised its weapon. A beam of energy shot toward him. He jumped, barely avoiding the blast, rolling across the jagged rubble. The heat seared his clothes, the air crackled in his ears, and sparks flew around him like angry fireflies. Then silence. The figure was gone. The shadows retreated into the molten fissures. The battlefield seemed to breathe again. His chest heaved. The glowing blade pulsed in his hand. And deep inside, a terrifying thought sank in. This was no longer a battlefield. This was a crucible. And he was only beginning to be tested. The battlefield had grown silent. Too silent. The fires from the fissures had dimmed, leaving only faint embers glowing in the ash-laden air. Every sound of movement seemed magnified, every whisper of wind a warning. He moved cautiously. Each step crunched on debris, every shard of glass and rubble a potential trap. The glowing blade in his hand was the only thing keeping him grounded in reality. The shadows from the fissures had vanished, but their presence lingered. He could feel eyes on him. Not human eyes. Cold, calculating, unyielding. Ahead, the ruins twisted into a narrow corridor of collapsed buildings. Walls leaned at impossible angles, forming a jagged tunnel of steel and stone. A faint blue light flickered within, beckoning him forward. He entered the corridor. The air inside was thick with smoke and the metallic tang of blood. Each breath burned his throat, made his lungs ache. Suddenly, a screech echoed. Not from any creature he knew. It was high-pitched, like metal scraping against bone. The sound wrapped around him, disorienting, forcing him to cover his ears. Figures emerged from the shadows. Tall, thin, and covered in ash. Their limbs bent at unnatural angles. Eyes glowing faintly red, focused solely on him. He swung the blade. The glow cut through their forms, but for everyone he struck, two more appeared. The corridor seemed endless. Each turn brought more shadows, more whispers, more danger. The walls closed in. The light flickered and died in some areas, plunging him into darkness. Every step was a gamble, every breath a battle against panic. Then he saw it. A door at the end of the corridor. Heavy, metallic, scarred with claw marks and burn marks. He ran. Every ounce of energy he had left propelled him forward. The shadows pursued, their screeches growing louder, echoing off the walls. He reached the door. It was locked. Cold steel against his hands. Behind him, the shadows closed in. He swung the glowing blade with all his strength. It struck the lock. Sparks flew. The metal groaned. And then it opened. Beyond the door lay a vast chamber. The ceiling high, lost in darkness. Pillars of broken stone stretched across the floor, creating a labyrinth. A new danger awaited. Something worse than shadows, worse than fire. And deep inside, he realized. The true test of survival had only just begun. He stepped into the chamber. The air was thick, almost tangible, like walking through water. Each step echoed loudly, bouncing off the distant pillars, making the vast space feel alive. The glow from his blade barely pierced the shadows. Shapes moved at the edges of his vision. Shadows that seemed to slither, not walk. Silent hunters in a cathedral of ruin. A low hum began to rise from the floor. Vibrations ran through the stone beneath his boots. He stopped. Listening. The hum grew louder. A deep, resonant tone, like the chamber itself was breathing. The walls shimmered, and faint inscriptions appeared on the stone pillars. He could not read them, yet they burned into his mind. Warnings. Promises. Threats. All at once. A sudden clatter echoed from behind. He spun. Nothing. Then another sound, closer. Scraping. Soft footsteps against stone. He raised his blade. The glow intensified. A shadow separated from the darkness. Human, but twisted. Its limbs elongated unnaturally, fingers like jagged knives. It lunged. The blade met the creature with a sharp clash. Sparks flew. The air filled with the stench of smoke and burned flesh. More creatures emerged, encircling him. The chamber felt alive now. Every pillar seemed to shift, creating new paths and closing old ones. He could not trust his eyes. He could not trust the floor beneath him. A shadow lunged from above. He dodged, rolling across the cold stone floor. Pain shot through his shoulder as he hit a jagged edge. Breath ragged, muscles burning, heart pounding like a war drum. He realized he had no choice but to push forward. Every step deeper into the labyrinth was a gamble. Then, a blinding light erupted at the far end of the chamber. The creatures recoiled, hissing, retreating into the darkness. The floor trembled. A portal, swirling with energy, opened like a wound in reality. The glow from his blade pulsed faster. It seemed to pull him toward the portal. But he hesitated. The creatures were regrouping. And something far worse stirred behind the portal, waiting. He clenched the blade tighter. Each second stretched into eternity. One misstep could cost him everything. And yet, he knew he had no choice. The portal was the only way forward. With a deep breath, he stepped toward it. The shadows shrieked behind him. The air crackled with energy. The chamber itself seemed to scream in anticipation. And as he crossed the threshold, the world twisted around him. Fire, shadows, and light collided. And a new, unimaginable battlefield awaited. He emerged from the portal. The world around him was unrecognizable. Ash-colored skies stretched endlessly, streaked with fiery red and purple. Mountains of jagged stone rose like teeth, and rivers of molten metal cut across the landscape. The air burned his lungs. A sulphurous tang mixed with the stench of decay filled his nostrils. The ground shook with every step he took, as if the planet itself was alive and angry. From the distance, he could hear them. Not the shadows from before. Something larger. Something intelligent. Armed forces moving in perfect formation. Armored soldiers, humanoid but enhanced with glowing veins of blue light. Their faces masked, weapons humming with lethal energy. Every movement precise, every step calculated. He crouched behind a jagged rock. His glowing blade was the only light in the desolate landscape. He could feel it pulsing in resonance with the world, guiding him. Suddenly, a volley of energy struck near him. Rocks exploded into shards, and heat washed over his back. He rolled forward, narrowly avoiding the blast. The soldiers advanced. They spoke in a language he could not understand, but the intent was clear. Eliminate. Every instinct screamed for him to flee, yet retreat meant certain death. He had survived too much to fall now. He leapt into the open, swinging his blade in a desperate arc. The energy shields of the soldiers flared. The blade met resistance, sparks flying in every direction. The force pushed him back, rattling his bones. One soldier fell, but 3 more replaced it instantly. The battlefield seemed endless. He could not see the edges. He could not see the beginning or the end. Then, a loud roar split the sky. A massive creature emerged from the molten river. Its eyes glowed white-hot. Its jaws opened wide, revealing rows of jagged, metallic teeth. The soldiers froze. The creature turned toward him. And in that moment, he realized. This was no ordinary battle. It was a test of everything he had learned, every skill he had honed. The ultimate trial in a world that would not forgive weakness. The ground trembled beneath his feet. The heat from the molten river surged around him. The creature advanced. The soldiers moved to intercept him. And he knew, without a doubt, victory required not only strength and skill, but cunning, courage, and the willingness to embrace the unimaginable. The battlefield stretched endlessly, a world of fire, shadows, and shattered stone. The creature towered over him, molten rivers reflecting in its eyes. The soldiers advanced, weapons humming, forming an impenetrable wall around him. He could feel his heartbeat echoing in his ears. Every muscle screamed for movement, every nerve braced for impact. He gripped the glowing blade. It pulsed violently, thrumming in sync with the chaos around him. The air shimmered with tension, thick and suffocating. The creature lunged. Time slowed. He dodged, rolling across jagged rubble. The molten ground hissed where he landed, steam curling around his boots. He slashed the blade. The creature recoiled, emitting a deafening roar that shook the skies. But more soldiers advanced, surrounding him on all sides. There was no escape. Then he remembered the word that had appeared on his blade, chosen. He had survived fires, shadows, and trials beyond comprehension. He realized survival required more than skill. It demanded fearlessness, decisiveness, and embracing the impossible. He leapt into the center of the encirclement. Spinning, swinging, striking. The blade glowed brighter with every hit, releasing waves of energy. The soldiers faltered, shields cracking under the intensity. The creature roared again, this time charging at him directly. He met it head-on. The clash was cataclysmic, flames erupted, rocks shattered, and the air screamed in protest. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then, with one final surge, he plunged the blade deep into the ground. Energy exploded outward in a blinding wave. The soldiers fell, the creature screeched, and the battlefield trembled violently. When the light faded, silence reigned. He stood alone. Exhausted, bloodied, but victorious. The molten rivers cooled, shadows dissipated, and the ash-laden skies cleared slightly. The word chosen glowed faintly on the blade. He realized he had survived not only the battle, but the crucible itself. And as he gazed across the broken world, he knew that in a land of endless combat, a lone player could rise, endure, and conquer. Victory was his. But the world was not done testing him.